Well, here we are again because the managerial merry-go-round keeps on spinning, and it's Hull City now announcing their new manager, Tim Volter. He'd been so short in the betting for pretty much last 10 days or so that we knew this was happening. We just didn't know when it was going to get finalised, announced, etc. He still hasn't had his visa finalised, but they are confident enough now, Hull, to go to the press and announce their new boss. It's just been a crazy time for managerial merry-go-round shenanigans. Rooney to Plymouth, I think that was the first one ticked off. Then Johannes Thorup to Norwich was announced yesterday. We knew that was kind of happening, similar to Volta, which has been announced today. It's not the end of this, guys. Sunderland have still got to go, haven't they? Burnley have just lost Vincent Kompany, so Burnley is open as well, which we'd expect to be a team right at the top of the division. And there's the potential that Leicester will be open very, very soon. We all expect that. Brighton is still open. So if any of those three clubs want to go into the Championship, I know Burnley are there themselves, to take their manager, then we could get more and more movement, which clubs are not going to want when those Euros kick off and everything gets a bit tardy, doesn't it, when there's a tournament on. Everyone's a little bit distracted kind of looking over there. But anyway, Hull City then. And this was a controversial one, wasn't it? Because I remember doing the video when Liam Rosenior went at the end of the season or immediately after the season finished. And a lot of people were against that decision. And as a result, not just of that, Mr. Iluchali, the Hull City owner, does have a bit of a reputation as a bit of a hatchet man, a hirer and a firer. You tell me in the comments whether that is fair or not. Because he's now, since he took the club, taken out Grant McCann, bought Shota Arveladze and sacked Shota Arveladze, bought in Liam Rosenior and sacked Liam Rosenior, and now he's gone to Tim Volter. I think the majority of the outrage were that Hull were pretty good last season, weren't they? They were just outside the playoffs. I think it was 7th, weren't they? So they couldn't have been any closer to the playoffs without being in the playoffs. And Mr. Iluchali cited the fact that they'd invested, which is true. The likes of Jaden Philogene, really good loans as well. And remember, loans is proper. If you don't keep the player, if you don't go up, that is like spending money on fireworks, isn't it? Because they're, puff and off they go. Fabio Carvalho, Ryan Giles, who else came in? Zaruri as well. I've seen some quite chunky transfers on a few of the players who came in from Turkey as well, which tends to happen at Hull since they got Turkish ownership. So it is true to say that Liam Rosenior was backed. It's probably not the time to debate his departure and Hull's aspirations and what's par for Hull. But a lot of the comments were, yeah, okay, it's all well and good saying playoffs are your target. But if you're heading in the right direction and you're really close, don't you kind of want to continue what you're doing? No, you don't. Because in comes Tim Volter to replace Liam Rosenior. I think the thing that's probably a bit more, I do think Mr. Iluchali had a point with the spend and the back-in. But when you start to hear about owners saying, styles of play, and I want this, I do start to get a little bit worried because, an owner can do what they like with a club and, we've seen owners do what they like with clubs, haven't we? And change the names and the colours of the shirts and terrible things like that, which Hull City fans were very much fearful of before Mr. Iluchali came in. But I don't think, especially given what happened at Birmingham this past season, where we had ownership and CEO, who's presumably the mouthpiece for their ownership, talking about no fear football, removing a manager who's pragmatic with Birmingham here, and then down they go and get relegated with their no fear football and stuff. So you've got to be a bit careful talking about that, I suppose, just because it happened there. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen at Hull, but Mr. Iluchali wants the playoffs, and he wants presumably more front foot attacking football, and he's brought in Tim. Which way do I point? I point that way. Do it with that hand. There we go. He's brought in Tim Volter to provide that for him. Volta, as I mentioned, 48 years old, German. Seemed to go through youth football in Germany. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert on German football. I am not. And he ended up getting to Bayern Munich, which you would assume if you are a youth representative manager in Germany, then the top job you can get is presumably at Bayern Munich. They're the biggest club by miles in Germany, aren't they? And then that route took him into first team management. I think it's possibly Stuttgart. The last club he was at was Hamburg. And it's very interesting this because it's all very second tier in Germany. And I think a couple of things will please Hull fans in that if Mr. Ilachali is saying he wants more excitement, more attacking football, I think he's probably going to get it from Tim Volta because as soon as I tweeted out about this, the sense was front foot, lots of goals in at both ends for Hamburg, which is potentially good news for your bang for your buck, for your season ticket, and to please your owner or your boss if you're Mr. Volta. But he was in the playoffs for the past 2 seasons in the, what is it called? It's called the Bundesliga 2, isn't it? I didn't do German. In fact, I did German for 2 years at high school, but I wasn't particularly the best student, I have to say. So forgive me on my German pronunciations and use of the German number 2 there. But he lost in the playoffs 2 times before leaving, I think, in the middle of the following season. So essentially, you're taking a manager here who's never managed in English football. Does that matter or not? You tell me. Depends on the manager, I guess. You're taking a manager who has experience at second tier level in Germany, which isn't equivalent. You play less games, and look, we all know how mental the championship is, and it essentially attaches itself in a lot of stats to the top 5 leagues, doesn't it? You have all the top divisions in the big countries, and then the championship in terms of attendances and money and that pot of gold in terms of getting to the Premier League, which Mr. Ilachali is obviously very keen to grab. And you're taking a manager who's not got that promotion on his name. I know it's kind of an old-fashioned thing, isn't it? You take managers who've been promoted before. Look at Hull themselves. Took Steve Bruce. Classic, he'll get you promoted out of the Championship manager. And he did, didn't he? With Hull City. He did it twice. He did it twice with Hull City, if I'm not mistaken, which I might be. I'm sure I'll find out in the comments. But it feels unproven. It feels a gamble, Volta. But hey, Danny Roll was a German gamble. Younger manager, obviously. And that paid off. Marty Cifuentes was a gamble as well. Norwich, Thorup, that's a gamble. So that's nothing new. I don't know. It's a double gamble, really, from Mr. Ilachali because you've also removed a Liam Rosenior who really knows English football, really knows the Championship, and has experience working there with Darby and, for goodness sake, Hull, the job that Tim Volta has been brought in to do. So I suspect the Hull fans are going to be a little bit like, well, okay, Mr. Ilachali, as you wish, but the bar was set at 7th place last season, and that wasn't good enough for you. So that does put a bit of pressure on Tim Volta. Essentially, everybody knows he needs to be in the top 6. We'll see how aggressive they are, Hull. Not sure what the FFP position's going to be in, because in terms of the going for it spending, I think Hull were probably the ones in terms of just owner backing, and you can't really compare it to Coventry because they had a couple of massive sales, and you can't really compare it to the parachute teams. You know, Hull really went for it and had good transfer windows. Particularly that January one, I thought that would really move the needle, and that did for Liam Rosenior in the end. Will they have to shift a Jacob Greaves or a Jaden Philogene? There's saleable assets in there, but knowing Mr. Ilachali, he feels like a gambler, and I reckon he might be going for it again next season. Let me know your thoughts on the hire of Tim Volta into Hull. How do you think it's going to work out? Because basically this feels quite binary. He's either getting in the playoffs or he's getting sacked, knowing the Hull City ownership. Let me know how you see it playing out as the Championship managerial merry-go-round spins once again at Hull and the MKM. Welcome, Tim Volta.